Hey classmates, good evening. Justin Bergeron here. Hope everyone's week's going well so far. So this week we're talking about in-flight emergencies, and I chose electrical fires. And so some common emergencies that can happen in flight are like landing gear failing to extend when you're coming in for on the approach. You can have engine failures, which most commonly happen on takeoff. And you can have fires in flight, and then there's a few other things that can happen in flight emergencies, but those are kind of the big ones. The checklist will cover, at least my Cessna 172 checklist, covers engine failures, electrical failures, fires, flat tires, pitot blockages, vacuum system failure, static blockages, icing, and spins. So if you're having an emergency other than that, hopefully you can think outside of the box because the checklist will not cover it. Thankfully, with the fire and electrical fire, that is in the checklist, so it kind of helps out a little bit. But in general, no matter what your emergency is, I really like BOLT method, and they go over quite a few different topics. But they say it's easy as it's easy as A, B, C, D, E. So A, airspeed. The very first most important thing is to pitch for that airspeed. So in my airplane, that's 68 knots, and that's going to get me the furthest glide distance if I happen to lose an engine or something like that. B is best place to land. So, I mean, the aircraft, if it's on fire, you want to get out of it. So you want to get down to the ground. I mean, first you want to put the fire out, but then you want to get down to the ground and get out of it. If your engine is done, then you need to again get to the ground. So no matter what, that's pretty much what you're planning to do, is find the best place to land. Preferably that's going to be an airport, or if it can't be an airport, maybe it's going to be a nice stretch of road, maybe it's going to be a nice pasture farming field, or worst case scenario, maybe even some water. I mean, if you're flying in mountainous terrain, then water's going to be a lot more smooth. And so C is a checklist. So look to see if your emergency is covered on the checklist. If it is, then follow the procedures for it. If it's not, then most commonly it's probably something fairly similar to what the checklist covers. So that's going to give you a general idea of what you can do. But don't be afraid if you have time to, you can always look that up. Although in an emergency situation, I doubt you'll have time to do that. So just kind of do what instincts and flight training has taught you. D, you can declare an emergency, and so that kind of gets you priority. So if you're getting into an airport and you don't really know what you're going to do, there's a lot of people at your fingertips. I mean, you have ATC, you have other pilots in the area. I mean, there's different people that you can reach out to, and they're going to clear up airspace for you. If you declare an emergency, they're going to give you priority to get to the ground. And then E is execute recovery procedure and emergency landing. And so, I mean, pretty easy, A, B, C, D, E, and that should cover most of your issues. So for the electrical fire, that is covered in the POH, and so it starts with the standby switch off, master switch, alt and battery both off, cabin vents, cabin heat and air all closed and off. And so, I mean, you're trying to, with an electrical fire, you want to stop all the electrical current. That way it doesn't continue to flame up. That way you can stop the source of it. And then with the vents and the cabin heat and the air, you want to stop the smoke from coming into the cabin. So you're trying to make a barrier between yourselves. So the next, the fire extinguisher. If you have the fire in front of you, then you can go ahead and start putting it out. Let's see, avionics switch, bus 1 and 2 off. And then all switches except the magnetos are all off. Once the fire is out, then you want to clear out that engine compartment. You want to clear out the cabin. You don't want any smoke around you or your crew. So you want to open up your cabin vents, and again, making sure that the fire's out, because that's just going to bring in more smoke. So you don't want to do that. So open up cabin vents, the cabin heat and the air all on. Circuit breakers, you want to check to see what's broken or what's popped, because that'll give you an idea of what might have started your fire. But I mean, it's kind of crucial that you do not reset the breaker, because that could just start your problem all over again. So then master switch, alternator and battery all back on. Standby switch, go ahead and arm, and then avionics all on. Um, the required post-flight actions. So NTSB 830, it goes over pretty much anything you need to consider for in-flight emergencies. And so it says that you have to notify the NTSB, the closest office, immediately for in-flight fire. And so it just says in-flight fire, whether electrical or whatever. So, I mean, pretty straightforward. You got to notify the NTSB. You want to write a detailed description of the incident, what actually happened. You want to put it in the maintenance records. That way the mechanic looking at it knows what happened, can work to fix it. And then you want to down the aircraft. That way no one else is going to jump in it. I mean, I don't think that's really going to happen, but you want to make sure that it doesn't. And so lastly, a little tip before that, electrical fire, you can smell it. You'll smell that wiring burn, and you really want to be on top of it, because you know what your engine smells like when you're flying. I mean, by now, I think a lot of us have, I mean, not a lot of hours, but we have, hopefully around 100 or over 100. And so, I mean, that's a decent amount of hours to where you know what your engine sounds like, you know what it smells like, you know what it's doing. And if it starts acting weird, I mean, start investigating it, because, I mean, you cannot catch it soon enough. Hope everyone's having safe flights out there, and have a good evening. Thanks for listening.